2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
So let's roll right on into our last session with 4 corners around it before we open it up to our experts exchange and take even more questions. I want to introduce first Mr. Adam Wells from Appalachian Voices. They are one of the hardworking co-hosts behind this event. Their team has been instrumental in helping us put this together, and they've been involved for many years laying excuse me, a lot of the foundational work on Brightfield's solar, but beyond. You know, they're focused on the land and everything that's happening there. So Adam, would you like to introduce everybody, or are we going to go one by one?
Dan, it's whatever you want to do, man. You're the maestro here. It was part of my plan for this slide, so I can do it, but you're on.
Yeah, that's what I thought. No, you're the man. I wanted to tee you up. Take it away, please.
Well, it's not all about me here.
This slide is, please. And you know these folks.
I do. Well, most folks on the line here. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're here to talk about the Solar Playbook and what that is, why we did it in Southwest Virginia, and how you can make it work for you and your community. I'm joined by an awesome team, featured in order of appearance here, I think. Dan already told you who I am, Adam Wells with Appalachian Voices. I'm in our Norton office in far Southwest Virginia. Ed Gilliland from the DC area with the Solar Foundation. And then Nick Kaza with National League of Cities, and Elizabeth Marshall with UVA's Weldon Cooper Center. And we'll be passing the mic around, so folks, if you want to say a little bit more about who you are when it's your turn, we'll do it that way. Dan, anything else at the top, or are we just good to roll on?
Yeah, no, I think that sounds great. You've assembled quite a collection of stars, and it looks stellar. So please take it away. Yeah,
it looks like there's kind of a smaller room here. You know, I know who most of y'all are, but not everyone. Could folks who aren't on part of the planning team or are joining for this session just take a couple minutes to say who you are, where you're coming from?
I'm going to ask everybody to drop that in the chat, Adam, because
Sure.
we don't have the mic capability for that.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool.
But please definitely jump in the chat, everyone.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're interested, since we do have a smaller group, really interested in as much dialogue as we can have. We'll use the chat box to make that happen. Thanks, Carrie. I forgot about that part. Okay, so here's where we're going. We've got a kind of a 3-part play here, where I'm going to talk about a little bit about what the Solar Playbook is and why we did it in Southwest Virginia and how we layered things together to make it work. Ed, who is kind of playing the role of the technical expert who led the compilation of the playbook, will say what's in there and how you can use it. And then Elizabeth and Nick are going to tag team making the pitch for why this might be a good idea for your community and how the Virginia SoulSmart resources could be put to work for you. And we are interested in your feedback and discussion, so we've got plenty of time there at the end for questions. But if somebody can keep an eye on the chat roll at the Q&A, and if there's a topical question that comes up in the middle, feel free to stop us. I know we're an hour 6 or 8 or something of Zoom for most people, so can try and keep it lively here. Speaking of keeping things lively, how about a boring disclaimer? Ed, do we need to say anything about this? This was left over from the last time we used these slides.
I think mainly just tell everybody to go home and memorize it.
Okay.
And, yeah, but so we won't cover it now, but just be sure to memorize it at home.
Yeah. If you can recite it at the 3rd day of the convening, you'll get a prize. So if you get nothing else from this is one of the key things, is that what we're talking about today is just such a result of incredible collaboration and nested and layered collaboration. The key partners putting the playbook together were the Solar Foundation, the SoulSmart program, and specifically the Virginia SoulSmart program, and then the Solar Working Group. And we'll come back to these 3 players throughout the presentation here. Getting into more of what I'm covering, the Solar Workgroup of Southwest Virginia is kind of the anchor entity for why this work started going in Southwest Virginia. Appalachian Voices is a co-convener of that group, along with UVA-Wise and People Incorporated. And then our planning team is made up of the other folks you see here: Pale Blue Dot, Nature Conservancy, Southern Environmental Law Center, DMME, and with facilitation by Dialogue and Design Associates. So just if you're wondering what is the Solar Work Group, what it is really matters, especially where it came from. So I want to spend a little bit of time on how we got together. So in the spring of 2016, we got all these people in a room together. And the idea, this was the first annual economic forum for Southwest Virginia. And the idea at the time was really to bring together the region's leaders in economic and community development. And really for the first time at that scale, talk about what do we do as a region in response to the plummeting coal economy. And that seems like a no-brainer at this point, but at that point in time, it was really the first time that there's the political cover and kind of the just lived reality and economic reality that we as a region had to get together and work together to move ourselves beyond where we were at the coal economy, just because it was in pretty dire straits. So that was a very forward-looking meeting, day-long convening. And during one of those breakout sessions, the question came up is, how can we use the development of a locally rooted solar industry as an economic catalyst? And that was just, a small breakout group that really got a lot of enthusiasm. And that little conversation, which was in a locker room at the Convocation Center at UVA-Wise, turned into we had a next meeting, and pretty rapidly and organically that grew into the Solar Work Group of Southwest Virginia, with the key players I mentioned earlier. So we've cut a ton of ground since then and done some really great work that I'm super proud of. Don't have time to go into all that today, but just to say that there's a lot going on, and this is just one small slice of that pie. So in terms of mission and vision, it's really all about being a leader for solar development, both in the region, Central Appalachia, the coalfield region, as well as across the Commonwealth, and really about that making solar work as an economic and a social catalyst, both in terms of the opportunities around solar itself, but then leveraging additional economic growth and social benefits as a result of that development. Really quickly here, we've got 4 goals of the work group. I'll just paraphrase here. It's to put up lots of solar that people can see in high visibility places. 2, while we're doing that, employ and train folks in Southwest Virginia, our friends and neighbors. 3 is to do education outreach at a community level, like at farmers markets and kids programming, as well as local leaders and even statewide elected officials. And then 4, make Southwest Virginia in particular, and the whole state, if we can, more solar friendly at a policy level. And so where we're headed here with talking about SoulSmart and the Solar Playbook really, kind of hits that 4th bullet of policy pretty squarely on the head, but ties to all of them. So this is one of the picture that we're just super proud of. This is the award ceremony where a Southwest Virginia SoulSmart cohort got their solar panels there in July of 2019. And this wasn't the first statewide cohort for SoulSmart, but it was the first one in Central Appalachia in coal country. So we're really proud of that. So you might be asking, well, what is SoulSmart? And my colleagues will go down in a little bit more detail, but just for now, it's a Department of Energy funded program administered by the Solar Foundation and others in National League of Cities to help localities at the county level streamline their permitting and zoning ordinances to streamline solar development. And this is geared, at a high level, it's geared towards all solar. And what we're talking about here is looking at solar on mineland or brownfields. And so we went through the process in early 2019 and had that award ceremony in July. And that really led us to what do we do with that momentum? And we started high level at kind of looking at all solar within this question of, how do we look at the region's pretty large inventory of mineland sites, and how do we leverage that and make it easier for solar to happen where that's viable? There's a couple of important challenges. One is that we haven't had any, at that scale, utility scale solar implementation happen anywhere, whether it's on a greenfield or a brownfield. So we had to kind of overcome that inertia and get localities, the information they needed to land those deals on their side. And the other thing, and this comes up across the board with brownfields, is it's not as cheap or to put solar on brownfields. Kind of compared side by side, usually it's cheaper to put level a cornfield and put panels up. So we wanted to level the playing field and make it as easy as possible to put solar on minefields. And Dan was shaking his head about yeah, is it well, I can tell you the truth is that it's more expensive to put solar on a rocky hillside.
That's true. So yeah. I only shake my head because I just heard someone for the first time. Well, I've heard her say it in the past, but Carrie in the last session said that brownfields can be cheaper. So it is possible, but you're absolutely right. There's more layers of sophistication and everything else. But,
yeah. And that's rapidly changing. And the Brightfields Act, which I'm sure has already been talked about today, is an exciting way it's changing. So that's kind of the Solar Playbook was created to answer that question of how do we maximize investment and local benefits from solar, and how we do that particularly with the region's vast mine land inventory. That was the tough technical question that Ed and his team took on. So that didn't just magically happen. There's a lot of really layered resources we had to put together to make that possible. So I want to talk about those layered resources. Wait a minute, it's a layered cake. Just testing to see if you're watching. Make you hungry? Here's our layered resources. So I already mentioned we've got the solar work group, and we from the very beginning had strong engagement from the localities long before we started the SoulSmart program. And so really none of that we wouldn't have gotten to this point with the playbook without locality engagement, and the trust that we had built with that group. So that led to the SoulSmart cohort, and really the momentum and the good experience that our county officials had with the Solar Foundation, with DMME, with UVA, and with National League of Cities, and just really saw those folks as a resource and kind of submitted them as experts in this field. So those are resources. Then we got some money. We got a Go Virginia, which is a statewide funding source, enhanced capacity building, which is their word for technical assistance grant, which helped bring some, just some dollars to this effort. Those dollars were matched by funding from the Solar Foundation via DOE and SoulSmart. And then the timing worked out really great, where there's the launch of the SoulSmart program in Virginia with the Weldon Cooper Center, with Elizabeth, National League of Cities, Nick, and then Carrie with DMME all came together, and we were able to really, without planning on doing it at the beginning, we joined forces and were able to support each other in this work. Kind of use Southwest Virginia as an experiment, and then hopefully that will be a jumping off point, and we can replicate it across the state. So that's our layered approach. Wait a minute, that's a cheeseburger. With that, I'll kick it over to Ed to go into the details.
Great, thank you so much, Adam. Although I appreciate the food references, I especially like the references to the events with lots of people, because that just reminds me of the good old days when we used to all go to events and have a good time with everybody. So thanks so much for that reference. But we're not doing that today, maybe next year. So yeah, Ed Gilliland, I'm Senior Director of the Solar Foundation, and I'm going to talk about the large-scale solar development playbook. I should say that while this was done for Southwest Virginia, probably 90–95% of it would apply to other counties in the state as well. Because it really does talk a lot of general things about solar. It does get into Virginia state laws and local planning practices. So, and most of that really would apply statewide. A lot of it would apply even outside of the state. So I think hopefully this is something that can be useful for many. And then let's see, so you're advancing slides. Yeah, we can go on, I guess, the next slide.
Yeah, just say next or whatever.
Next, yeah, okay. Sure. So the solar development opportunity, if you haven't heard already at the Virginia, at the summit, it's a tremendous development opportunity going on right now, nationally and in the state. Of course, in the US, we are faced with declining solar cost, over 70% since 2010. And at this point, about a little bit over 40% of all new electrical capacity that comes online every year is from solar. And the industry in 2019 was doing about 250,000 jobs, and we expect to have the 2020 numbers out pretty shortly here. Also, if we look in 2019, the state had almost 900 megawatts of solar energy statewide, and that's cumulative, the solar energy that was already been built up over the last 3, 4, 5 years. This morning, SEIA and Wood Mackenzie came out with the 2020 numbers, and for the year 2020, there was 1,400 megawatts of solar developed in the state of Virginia. So there's more developed in 2020 than the entire state had at the beginning of the year. So that's an incredible amount of growth, and now puts Virginia in 4th place in the nation. It was just behind California, Texas, and Florida. So Virginia is in a quite exclusive club there as far as the amount of solar development going on. Of course, the Virginia Clean Economy Act has been a big stimulus for the solar industry, and will continue going on into the future. All right, let's go next slide. So our focus on this report was on 2 of the 3 market segments for solar. We looked at utility scale and non-residential. If you are more interested in residential, we can, the Solar Working Group has a lot of information on residential as well, as does SoulSmart. But the focus of this effort was on the utility scale and the non-residential. The utility scale being the solar that feeds directly into the grid. It's typically ground mounted, larger than a megawatt. The non-residential being the solar that is tied to typically a business, or it's like a warehouse or a school or a data center. So the solar does support the load of the facility, but it's also typically tied to the grid and can sell excess electricity back to the grid. Next slide. Of course, you've heard in previous sessions and many times before about all of the benefits of solar, the jobs, the clean energy. We should note here that for many counties in Virginia, maybe that are struggling to get tax revenue, solar can be a tremendous stimulus to the tax revenue. Here's an example. Under one system in Virginia now, where a 75 megawatt project generates over $100,000 in annual tax revenue. So it can be really strong to the local tax base, and very important in that sense. Also, what we've seen is that solar can appeal to businesses that want to perhaps relocate to your area or expand in your area. Those businesses may want to be powered by clean energy. They may have a lot of more and more businesses have a preference for being powered by clean energy. And so if you can offer solar, it can be an enticement for business growth. Let's see, next slide. So the report, I'm going to talk briefly about some of the aspects of the report. I won't go into the specifics, but here we do cover the solar development process from the developer's perspective. So even though this report is primarily aimed at local public officials, we want to give those people a perspective that the developer will have as they come into your community and go through the process of getting approved and financing and interconnecting for solar. And so it can be a pretty complex process, a lot of things to consider. And as the non-residential solar, it's a process that can take months and months, 3 months, 6 months. And then the utility scale solar typically takes years. It can take 2 or 3 years. Next slide. The key players, you guys know most of who these are, but we do want to touch on them so that everybody is aware of who the key players are. And so we do cover that in the guidebook. Happy to answer any questions here. Let's go to the next slide. So the regulatory approval process is so critical to local governments that are trying to work with developers that are trying to do solar. It's very important that local governments address solar in their comprehensive plans and their zoning codes. You really don't want to be silent on solar. You don't want to be reactive. If a project comes across your desk, community is in such a much better position if they have thought about beforehand what they want in solar as far as their county or city is concerned, what they don't want, and how they want it built or not built. So all of these elements are very important, and we encourage communities to think ahead, to do the put it in the comp plan, put solar in the zoning codes. Okay, next slide. I think we go one slide back if we can, yeah. So we wanted to, there are lots of other development considerations. Of course, in this summit, you've already heard a lot about solar on brownfields and these previously mined lands. There's a lot on power purchase agreements where a third party would own the solar, perhaps on a roof of a business, and how that arrangement how you can do that, and how that can be advantageous to both the property owner and the solar developer. PACE financing is a really good opportunity in Virginia. Stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy, and it's a way for say a property owner to install solar, and instead of paying for it up front, they pay for it over time with a surcharge on their property tax. And so if typically that surcharge is below the cost of the savings that they get from solar. So in a sense, they're acquiring solar with no money down, and you're cash flow positive from day one. So go to the next slide. Okay, so what is the process that the local community or the local jurisdiction would go through and typically goes through with solar? Well, certainly we want to set the vision and the priorities, what you want with solar. Then you're going to identify their barriers and try to address some of those barriers. And then perhaps you might identify some sites. We're going to focus a little bit more on these top three on the next slide. So the vision, the priorities, what are your main goals? What are you trying to develop? Are you looking for jobs, for clean energy? Are you trying to address the needs of various stakeholders and property owners that could be interested in solar? All of those are important. They're things you can put in your comp plan. What are the barriers that you anticipate? How about the public? How does the public feel about solar? What are their concerns? What about competing land uses? Agriculture versus forest land versus previously mined land. How can you target solar where you would like? And then what about the planning processes are maybe unclear and might present a barrier to a solar project? And then you can look at potential sites. There's a lot of discussions back and forth on how prescriptive a local government would want to be in directing solar, say in your county. And we can certainly discuss in the Q&A, but suffice it to say that from the solar's perspective, a utility scale project, they're going to want to have proximity to the transmission lines. They're going to want favorable topography, which is generally pretty flat or close to flat. So, and then there are going to be obviously things that a county will want to consider, which is what agricultural or forested land they would like to preserve. Next slide. So in looking more at the number 4 here, at the regulatory issues, again, the comprehensive plan is so important. Consider amending, if you're going to amend it, include solar. And if you're going to do zoning code, you'd want to put solar in the zoning code. Even if you can't, you might could do some minor text amendments, such as a definition of solar in your zoning code. Then you want to look at your process to review solar development proposals. These are not unlike other larger real estate projects where you do site plan review and various and look at maybe there's some compensation that you might want to get from the developer to support a related issue in your community. So there's a whole host of regulatory processes you go through at the local level. And then of course there's a state regulatory process as well. And then finally, you can promote the opportunity for solar. Go out and talk about it at trade shows, when we can finally go to them. Go to at webinars, SoulSmart. You can even issue an RFP. And if you have questions about that, Adam has a good story to tell you about that. So I think that's good. We'll turn it over to Nick and Elizabeth.
Great. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Adam. So what I'd like to do today is talk a little bit more about the SoulSmart program as a resource and some of the other resources that we can leverage in conjunction with SoulSmart to really deliver meaningful technical assistance to localities across Virginia. Next slide. So Adam's done a great job of giving an overview of the SoulSmart program in Southwest Virginia. As he mentioned, we had 8 communities get designated in 2019. And through that process and through the engagement that happened before and after that, it became clear that localities in this region could benefit from additional guidance that was more comprehensive in terms of helping them navigate the process to, how do you go about creating policies and procedures and codes that would facilitate the development of abandoned mine lands, brownfields, and coal impacted land for solar. So the Solar Playbook was born as an idea. And through this process, we've dubbed SoulSmart 2.0, which was really a collaborative effort that was led by the Solar Workgroup of Southwest Virginia, the Solar Foundation, Appalachian Voices, and then the Virginia SoulSmart team. We were able to engage with the localities and the communities in the region and get their input into developing the playbook. And it was through this regional support and coordination that made it possible to obtain the funding and put together the resources that were necessary to bring this playbook to fruition. Next slide, please. So what is SoulSmart? Well, SoulSmart is a national designation program designed to recognize localities for encouraging solar energy growth. Ultimately, it's designed to reduce the soft costs associated with solar development. It's specifically for individual localities or for regional organizations, but there's a benefit to localities coming together as a region and to forming a cohort, so we encourage that. As Adam mentioned, it's led by the Solar Foundation, the International City County Management Association, and it's funded through the U.S. Department of Energy Solar Technologies Office. Here in Virginia, DMME partnered with UVA in order to offer this no-cost technical assistance program to localities. It's available to localities across the Commonwealth, and we're continually recruiting and enrolling localities. We're working with several right now And recently, the city of Williamsburg achieved their silver designation, and Pulaski County achieved gold designation. They also got a special recognition in their permitting and inspections category, which Nick will go over. I think on the next slide, he'll get into some more the more detail about how the program works, what the criteria for designation is, and how the program's criteria can really support localities in priorities. So if you are a locality or you're working with a locality that might be interested in working with us to achieve some of these, or to receive some of this technical assistance, we encourage localities to submit a request for consultation from the DMME SoulSmart webpage. The address is shown here on the screen, or you can just Google or go to DMME's website and find their page that way. Next screen. Okay, Nick.
All right, thank you very much, Elizabeth. My name is Nick Kaza, Program Manager on the Sustainability team at the National League of Cities. And I've been working on SoulSmart for about 5 years. It is a national program, so that means we work across the country in various states, from Anchorage, Alaska to South Miami, Florida. I've worked with communities, including quite a few in the Virginia region as well. As quite a few speakers have alluded to, SoulSmart is a national solar energy designation and technical assistance program. And the program itself is based on an objective set of criteria that's based on solar energy best practices. And so these are things that we have learned collectively as a team of about 10 to 12 organizations over the course of years working in both solar energy and with local governments. And so we've created this criteria that has 75 unique credits that really focuses on what levers local governments can do to promote a healthy solar energy market within their communities. Originally, when SoulSmart started, it really had a focus on residential and rooftop solar energy. But as we talked with more communities, we kind of recognized what the needs were and expanded the criteria to include large scale ground mounts and the key considerations there, particularly in terms of planning and zoning. So we actually just launched a new criteria at the beginning of this year. We went through a little streamlining exercise, and we now have 75 unique credits for a total of 775 available points in 5 different categories. And again, these are categories that really speak to what local governments can do and work on: permitting and inspection, planning and zoning, government operations, community engagement, and market development. And within those categories, we have a couple of credits that are prerequisites required for any level of designation. As we see here, there's 3 for bronze, 3 for silver, and then 2 for gold. And we have a technical assistance team that can work with communities basically through the entire process. We'll be there during the initial conversation, introducing SoulSmart to your community, and then we can walk you through what needs to be completed in order to achieve designation. Some communities have specific initiatives. Maybe it's a feasibility analysis for solar on some rooftops, or launching a Solarize campaign where we can provide additional targeted assistance to ensure that not only can they achieve designation, but they can also work on some of the solar energy initiatives that are very much of interest to that community as well. Once a community is ready to submit for designation, we have a review team that sits independent of the technical assistance team, and they verify that the credits have been achieved by a community, and then they are awarded designation once that verification is complete. Go ahead, Adam. We can move to the next slide. SoulSmart right now is actually in the middle of one of our own initiatives. We're doing a level up initiative. So working with localities across the country that have already achieved designation, and we want to work with them to achieve a higher level, whether that's bronze to silver or gold, or maybe silver to gold. We'd like to work with them and help them on their SoulSmart journey. If anybody's listening from the Southwest Virginia cohort, or some of the folks in Northern Virginia I worked with, happy to work with you, see if we can get you leveled up to that next designation level. And then we're also looking to really work with regions, planning district commissions, regional organizations, because we realize that there are synergies when you have neighboring localities working together. They may not adopt the exact same policies and processes, but if you can have some level of consistency, transparency and clarity, you can really improve not only the local markets, but then a regional solar market as well. I think we can go to the next slide, but I just want to make one pitch that these slides really don't do justice to what the playbook looks like. It is just a wealth of information. Really recommend folks check it out on the website. And then also SoulSmart has updated a program guide as well. And there's a lot of fantastic community examples from across the country, templates and resources as well to help communities on their solar journey. So 2 great resources to check out.
Thanks, Nick. In the last few minutes here, I thought I'd highlight some of the resources that we've developed over the past year and that we've delivered to localities, either through the SoulSmart program or through UVA's partnership with DMME. And together, this really creates a suite of resources and assistance to the localities that we can leverage with SoulSmart to meet their needs. So first, as Nick mentioned, one of the great things about the SoulSmart program is that it is a nationwide program. So it allows us to draw on best practices and experience that other states and localities in other states have gone through already. And one of those is understanding best practices in permitting and inspections. There's a national expert who we brought to Virginia to offer this statewide training to any locality in Virginia, whether they were committed to the SoulSmart designation process or not. It was a 3-part webinar series, and through that process, localities that participated already achieved a single prerequisite for their silver designation. So for any of the localities that went through that process, if they choose to come back and go through SoulSmart with us, they've got a leg up. Another technical resource we're really proud of is the Soul Tax Analysis Tool. Carrie mentioned it earlier, and I'll touch on it here. Basically, it's a tool to help localities evaluate or inform their decision-making regarding whether the M&T or the revenue share tax model is more advantageous to them in their particular circumstances. There's a link to that tool here. You can also access it through the Weldon Cooper Center's Energy Transition Initiative resources page, if you'd like to Google that. Finally, there's an upcoming Virginia Solar Survey that we're sponsoring. It will be administered to all the counties and independent cities in Virginia, and it's intended to give us insight into what resources and technical assistance is needed across the state. SoulSmart is a fantastic resource, and if we can augment that and supplement that with additional resources that we either develop internally or that we partner with others to develop and deliver to localities, we'd like to do that. So we're looking forward to continuing to develop and offer resources and support, whether that be to individual localities or to a cohort or a regional organization. Please stay engaged with us. You can go to the next slide. Let us know, what your questions are or what kinds of assistance you're really looking for. As Ed said, the Solar Playbook really is a great tool to help localities and communities across the state benefit from the energy transition, particularly with regard to brownfields redevelopment for solar. And so we're committed to listening to your need and responding with resources and developing assistance as needed. So please reach out, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I was just blown away. I couldn't think of a better way to kind of wrap the program today, with more resources, with the playbook, literally putting it all on a silver platter for folks. I mean, I just can't thank you enough. The work that you do, you make it's also easy. We could have given you so much more time too. Of course, it's not so easy, but in the limited time that you guys had and the way that you just toggled through that, it's tremendous. And I really encourage everybody to follow those breadcrumbs and dig into that in the knowledge binder. Adam, did you have any follow-up questions for this incredible group?
No, there was a question in the Q&A about localities that I think got answered. Like Carrie was typing something.
Could you go ahead and re-ask it for everybody and for the YouTubers? Yeah.
Yeah, it was what localities were served. And for the Southwest region, it was the counties of Lee, Wise, Dickinson, Scott, Russell, and Tazewell, plus the city of Norton and the town of St. Paul. Why did the town of St. Paul do something that's for counties? Because they're overachievers. That's why, in the best way possible. And I'll let somebody else from the state team tag any other localities that y'all want to. I think there's a lot, though, at this point.
There are quite a few. I know in Northern Virginia, City of Fairfax, County of Fairfax, Loudoun County, Arlington, Alexandria, Falls Church, Charlottesville and Albemarle County, James City County, quite a few. There's probably a few I'm forgetting. There's 2 regional commissions in Virginia, Northern Virginia Regional Commission and New River Valley Regional Commission have also been designated as well. So definitely still time to get on board though.
It sounds like the Grammys. I mean, so much great work, such as a renaissance, my friends. So it's got a few. Ed, what about you? Any final thoughts? I thought I really enjoyed your presentation and your remarks as well.
Sure. So I think one of the things that comes out here is going back to Adam's cake or burgers, whichever one you prefer. I'm going to opt for I'm going to take the cake and let somebody else have the burger stack. But it really is a layered effort. We've got SoulSmart, we've got DMME, we've got the Appalachian Voices, working on the ground in the Southwest region. We have, and I believe there are a number of other nonprofit organizations that have been involved that Adam flashed up there in the beginning, and all of these groups have contributed and helped maintain the momentum to move forward in Southwest Virginia. And I think that that team approach is really the way to go, and it's been is yielding results.
How about you, Elizabeth? Any follow-up thoughts?
I echo what Ed said. I think that there's benefit to, localities and organizations coming together with a focused and a singular goal. It really allows us to leverage the resources that we have at our disposal. And so we encourage that, but that's not to say that, great work can't come out of a single locality with a defined focus and a defined priority.
Yeah, absolutely. I think empowering localities is part of the secret sauce here to actually seizing this moment, this opportunity that we've been talking about all day. But Nick, you've been in now 5 years, and that's been a critical time in the Renaissance here. What can you add? I mean,
I just once again plug that SoulSmart is really here to help communities and meet them where they're at. So we're meant to be that additional helping hand. We're not recreating the wheel here at all. There's a lot that have already been on this journey. We've learned from their trials and tribulations. And so that's why we have best practices now to really leverage. And one of the nice things about SoulSmart is because it's tiered, there's really an opportunity for the largest county or the smallest town or city as well. And for our kind of lower bronze designation, we're really just trying to get an understanding of what a community currently does. So what is their current policies? What is their current permitting and inspection processes? And we're going to get an understanding of that. And then if they want to kind of improve or challenge themselves and aim for quicker turnaround time, or really try and streamline their zoning for solar, we can help them there as well. And so it's a really great opportunity, and it's kind of a win-win. You can educate your staff internally. We have a lot of resources to educate your community members and residents. And then hopefully you see more local solar energy installed, which is just a great benefit all around.
Absolutely. It's a perfect way to put a big exclamation point on this super important and super practical session. Being an attorney, real estate attorney, first and foremost in my career, being at the closing table, working with localities, this is how we make it real. It's the key nexus. And I think for me, my biggest takeaway from this session goes to Ed really talking about reactive versus proactive diligence, especially for municipalities and the localities. If you can get your stuff together in advance, it's much better than trying to react. And it's even if you have these big beautiful ideas, you want a half acre for bees and butterflies with a nice little walkway alongside. If you put that out there in front, the private sector, the developers know, and they can work around that. They can put it right in front of their proposals themselves. I mean, Ed mentioned putting it right in your comp plan, right in your zoning codes. And I think that those are real actionable takeaways that resonate beyond Virginia. And I see a great comment from Carrie Hearn in the chat about the utility of the playbook really everywhere. So I encourage, everywhere, wherever you're watching this now or down the road. It might be a little dated if you're watching, in 2030, but there's some really great stuff, some really great schemes to follow. Okay, so thank you guys, in particular thanks to Mr. Wells and Appalachian Voices, and you guys are just such a catalytic force. But big bravo and virtual claps for everyone. Keep doing this important work and go forward and find these people. They know what's going on.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.